You know, I just had the idea if I was clever, I would like have a hat on when I'm doing homesteading, like my baseball cap or something like that. And then when I was talking about moms, I would do something else. And when I was doing homeschooling, I would be like in my cardigan. But so just pretend like I have on a hat. At least I always have my chickens around. So there's my chickens in the background. I really do love them. There's something wrong with me, maybe. I candled the eggs today in the incubator, and I talked you through it a little bit. Um, so uh, chickens are the gateway drug to farming, and so I got chickens 12 years ago, 13 years ago, just because my husband wanted us to be more sustainable should something happen. I thought he was a little crazy, honestly. I was not the supportive, submissive wife in that instance. I certainly did not want to have chicks in my garage. So we went and got 5 chicks, and one died. And so then I had to go back and get 4 more. And that is what they call chicken math, if you've ever heard of it. So that was the beginning, and it turned out I loved them. So I have always had chicken stuff around me because my grandmother loved chickens, and turns out I do too. I'm named after her. So who knew? So all that's to say is stay tuned to go into the feed barn and find out what happens when you candle chicken eggs. Any questions you have about starting a homestead or finding out the mistakes along the way will be in this homesteading category. We've been doing this here on this property for 7 years, and before this, it was, I think, 7 years on an acre, oh, just under 2 acres. And then I wanted goats, and so my husband said you have to move because you can't have goats on 2 acres, which is not true. You actually can, but not on that acreage. It was like fancy dancy luxury lane. It would not have been polite to our neighbors. So we'll talk about goats another time. Today is all about chickens. Stay tuned in the feed barn. Okay, here I am in our feed barn. That right over there is our brooder for our chicks, and what I'm doing right now is candling the eggs. So right here, I'll show you in a little bit our incubator. And so what I'm doing now is seeing which one. See how there's a dark spot and then a light spot? That means there's been, like, the air pocket has increased. This one's all light, so that means there's nobody in there. So whenever you're candling eggs, it doesn't have to be super dark. You just have to have a bright light, and you just have to be able to know what you're looking for. So these are about 5 days from lockdown, so that one's all the way bright, so it's not gonna then have anybody in there. So whenever there's an air pocket that you can see, yeah, so that one's nobody's in there. Not sure why so many of these aren't fertilized. Ooh, that one I can feel. This one's like rotten. When you pick it up and it's really light, that means it's mostly bacteria, and so that's really not good. So they're heavier when there's people in there. Well, obviously not people. This one's got an air pocket, which is super cool, but at some point it died, so it did not. See how you can still see through it, so there's nobody in there. So it began, and then he died at some point, so he's no longer viable. So here's just kind of one of the steps in farming. Gosh, it's a really bad hatch. This is what happens when you don't pay close attention. You have to, this one's gross, so don't pop that one. See, that's bad. When you don't pay close attention to when you're gonna hatch, which I didn't, I just kind of grabbed whichever ones. I was like, hey, let's start a hatch. And so these were older eggs. You usually have about a week. So this one's obviously new. See, look at that. I wish if it was darker in here, you'd be able to see them moving around in there. You can't because this is a darker egg, but they're actually kicking in there and moving around and breathing in and breathing out the fluid. So this is one of the steps. It takes 21 days to hatch chicks, and if you're doing it during the wintertime, you have to be a lot more careful. This one looks like there's somebody in there. Let's see if you can see it. So it's not really a great egg. See how it's kind of see-through and calcified and not solid? Yeah, I see movement, so he's in there. The way I choose which eggs to do is based on the favorite colors. That one's nobody. So at some point it was there, and now it's not. Anyhow, if you're interested in hatching eggs, there's a whole wealth of information out there. This one has a little ditch in it, so that means even if there was somebody in there, it's probably not going to hatch because it's not, yeah, it's not a good one. So this is a really bad hatch. I usually get like 90%, 80 to 90%, but I didn't pay attention. Aw, this one was somebody there. There's a lot of cracked ones. I'm gonna keep him. He's got a little crack right here, but hopefully he'll be okay. He might make it. So you're adding heat, 99.5%, I'm sorry, 99.5 degrees temperature, and then humidity to these eggs. They're being turned back and forth for 21 days. If you set them on a Monday, they will hatch on a Monday 3 weeks later, assuming the temperature is right. The air pockets are a good size, meaning it's not too humid, not too dry. If the air pockets were bigger, then that would mean it was too dry. I did let the water run out a couple of times. Ooh, this one, can you see? He's kicking. I don't think you can see. Anyhow, I did let it dry out a couple of times, but it's been so humid here in Texas that it's been okay. So this is a nice small air pocket, meaning it's nice and wet. So I'm gonna keep on doing this, finish up. I got 3 trays here, and then I'll show you a little bit more. So that's what it is. See, it's nice and dirty in here, just like it would be underneath a mama chicken. So here's a close-up of an egg that you can see a little bit better. I'm gonna chirp at it and he'll talk. Chirp, 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 chirp. Okay, can you see that movement? Yeah, there. So it's super cool. If you haven't ever hatched eggs, I highly recommend it. A lot of farmers will let you hatch and then will be okay with like just taking the chickens off your hands, so you can keep them for a couple of weeks. There's also a thing called Rent the Chicken. I actually was an affiliate for that, so rentthechicken.com. I used to bring around eggs and let people hatch them. There's a tray, and this is what the inside of an incubator, a giant incubator looks like. And so these turn to keep the chicks from sticking to the side and making sure they get the same heat all the way around. This is the water, the humidity. Humidity is dependent on surface area, not how much. So whenever it's time for lockdown, when it's going to stop curving, I actually fill this in as well. Okay, that's probably a lot more than you wanted to know. Okay, so good news. It wasn't as bad as I thought. These are the guys that were duds, and these are the ones that made it. So that's good. It's good news. I guess that first row was just older eggs, and then the other ones are good. So these guys all have somebody in there, so they're going to go back in and keep on incubating for another 6 days.